Jake stood in the heart of the alien tribunal, his heart pounding in his chest. The walls around him seemed to stretch endlessly, adorned with strange symbols that hummed with an eerie energy. He had never imagined he would be standing here, in front of an alien court, facing a fate no human had ever encountered before. The room was filled with alien beings of all shapes and sizes, their eyes glowing in the dim light. They sat on high, throned platforms watching him with a cold, calculating gaze. Their features were sharp and their silence was deafening. Each one wore intricate robes that shimmered in the dark, reflecting the eerie green glow from the walls. It was impossible to tell how many of them were in the room, but their presence was overwhelming. Jake had been captured during a covert mission on a distant planet. His team had been ambushed by an alien force, and in the chaos, he had been taken prisoner. For days he had been kept in a cold, dark cell deprived of food and water. Now he found himself standing before an alien tribunal, his mind racing. He had no idea what to expect, but whatever it was, he knew it wouldn't be good. The lead judge, a tall, thin figure with glowing eyes, slowly rose from its seat. The room went silent as the alien began to speak. The language was unlike anything Jake had ever heard before. It sounded like a series of clicks and hums, yet somehow, he understood the words clearly in his mind. The translator device in his ear had kicked in, decoding the language into his native tongue. Human. The voice resonated in his mind, cold and emotionless. You stand before us accused of trespassing on our world, a world that is beyond your comprehension. Your actions have brought forth great destruction, and now you must face the consequences. Jake's throat tightened. He had always known that the risks of his mission were high, but he never imagined the punishment would be this severe. His mind raced, trying to think of a way to survive this. He had been trained for combat, for survival, but not for something like this. He had no idea how to deal with alien justice. The judge paused, and the room seemed to grow colder, the air thick with tension. Jake's hands were clammy, his legs shaking beneath him. His thoughts were a blur as he tried to prepare himself for whatever was coming next, but nothing could have prepared him for the words that followed. The sentence is decided, the alien judge declared, its voice cutting through the silence like a knife. You will face our mating ritual. You will be judged by the women of our race, and if you succeed, your life will be spared. If you fail, you will never leave this place alive. Jake's eyes widened in shock. He had expected punishment, perhaps death. But this was something he had never even imagined. A mating ritual? His mind struggled to process what he had just heard. Was this a punishment or something else? And why did they choose such an unusual sentence for him? He was a soldier, a warrior, trained to fight, not to participate in alien rituals. The room seemed to spin around him, his mind struggling to comprehend what had just been said. He had heard stories of strange alien customs, but nothing like this. He felt the eyes of the tribunal members on him, waiting for his reaction. For a moment, he said nothing. He couldn't speak. He was in shock. But then, as the silence stretched on, Jake took a deep breath. He couldn't afford to show weakness. He had to survive this, no matter what it took. His training had always taught him to stay focused in the most dangerous of situations. He couldn't let fear control him now. He straightened his back and forced himself to look the alien judge in the eye. How am I supposed to succeed in this ritual? Jake asked, his voice low but steady. What do you expect from me? The alien judge's glowing eyes narrowed slightly, and for the first time, Jake saw something resembling a smile, or perhaps it was a gesture of amusement. You will learn, the judge replied, but not until you have begun. The ritual is about more than physical strength. It is about understanding our ways, our culture. Only then will you truly be judged. Jake's mind raced as he tried to process the alien's words. He wasn't sure what he had just been sentenced to, but he knew one thing. This wasn't going to be easy. The fear in his chest grew, but he knew he couldn't show it. If he was going to survive, he had to play along. He had to adapt to their ways, whatever those might be. The alien judge motioned, and two figures stepped forward from the shadows. Two alien women, tall and graceful, with long silver hair that shimmered in the dim light. They looked at Jake with intense, curious eyes, their expressions unreadable. Without a word, they moved towards him, guiding him out of the tribunal room. The air was thick with tension as Jake followed them down a long, dark corridor. What had he gotten himself into? He had no idea what lay ahead, but he was determined to survive. Whatever the alien women expected from him, he would do his best to meet their challenge. He had no choice, and so Jake's journey into the unknown began. The trial was far from over. In fact, it was only just beginning. Jake walked down the long, dimly lit corridor, his heart hammering in his chest. The two alien women led him silently, their steps echoing in the eerie stillness. The walls around them were cold and smooth, covered in strange symbols that seemed to glow faintly in the dark. He had no idea where they were taking him, but he knew one thing for sure. This ritual wasn't going to be anything like he'd ever faced before. The more he thought about it, the more confused he became. A mating ritual? What did that even mean? He had heard of strange customs from alien races, but this was unlike anything he could have prepared for. Jake had been a soldier for years, facing battlefields, surviving ambushes, and learning how to defeat enemies. But this was something entirely different, something he had no training for. And the stakes were higher than anything he had ever encountered. The women finally stopped in front of a large open doorway, and with a simple gesture, one of them motioned for Jake to enter. As he stepped inside, the air seemed to thicken, charged with an odd, almost electric energy. The room was enormous, a massive chamber filled with towering pillars and strange alien markings on the floor. The walls were lined with shelves that held curious objects, jars filled with glowing liquids, strange artifacts, and other items that Jake couldn't even begin to understand. At the center of the room stood a raised platform, and on it, a large, ornate chair. Sitting in the chair was another alien woman, her long silver hair cascading down her shoulders, her pale skin glowing faintly in the dim light. Her eyes were fixed on Jake as he stepped forward, and there was an intensity in her gaze that made him feel small and insignificant. This was no ordinary woman. She exuded power and authority. The alien women who had brought Jake here knelt before her, their heads bowed in respect. The woman in the chair did not speak, but her presence was enough to make Jake's skin prickle. It was clear she was the one in charge here, the one who would oversee the ritual. Without saying a word, the woman gestured for Jake to approach. His legs felt heavy as he walked toward the platform. He had no idea what he was supposed to do next, but he didn't want to appear weak or hesitant. If he was going to survive this, he had to be confident. As he approached the platform, the woman in the chair slowly stood. Her height made her seem even more imposing. She was taller than any human woman he had ever seen, and her presence was magnetic. The other women in the room stood up as well, their eyes watching Jake with a mixture of curiosity and something else, something he couldn't quite place. The woman in front of him spoke, her voice soft but commanding. "This ritual will test you. Not just your strength, but your mind, your spirit, and your ability to understand us. We are not like humans. We do not value strength alone. If you wish to survive, you must prove that you understand our ways, that you can respect our customs." Jake's heart skipped a beat. Respect their customs? He had no idea what they expected from him. How could he possibly understand their ways in such a short time? But he didn't have a choice. This was his only chance to survive, and he had to make it count. The woman reached out and placed her hand on Jake's chest, her touch cold yet somehow soothing. "You are here to prove yourself," she continued, her voice a whisper. "You will not be the first human to undergo this ritual, but you will be the first to face it with the understanding that we are not enemies. We are not conquerors. We are different, and only those who can adapt will survive." Jake didn't know how to respond. His mind was racing, trying to process everything the woman had said. The alien women around him watched him closely, their expressions unreadable. For a brief moment, Jake felt like he was being studied, like some kind of specimen under a microscope. The woman in front of him stepped back, and the others followed her lead. They gestured for Jake to sit in the chair, and he did, his movements stiff and unsure. As soon as he sat down, a strange sensation washed over him. The room seemed to pulse with energy, and the air grew even heavier. The alien woman in the chair raised her hand, and the entire room seemed to go silent. Then the ritual began. The women slowly began to circle around Jake, their steps rhythmic and deliberate. Each woman carried an object in her hand, some kind of alien tool adorned with glowing symbols. The tension in the room was unbearable. Jake's heart raced, and he fought to control his breathing. He had no idea what these women were planning to do, but he knew it would be something unlike anything he had ever experienced. One of the women stopped in front of him and held out an object, a strange pendant with a glowing stone at its center. She placed it in his hand, and Jake felt a strange warmth spread through his palm. The other women continued their circle, their eyes locked on him, waiting for something, waiting for him to react, to understand. The woman who had spoken earlier stepped forward again. Her eyes were intense, and she fixed Jake with a penetrating gaze. "The first test is understanding," she said. "Do you understand us, human? Do you understand what is at stake here?" Jake stared at the glowing pendant in his hand, feeling a deep sense of uncertainty. He had no idea what this ritual truly entailed, but he knew one thing for sure. He was in over his head. The ritual had only just begun, and Jake's survival depended on his ability to adapt, to learn, and to understand an alien culture that was far beyond anything he had ever encountered. Jake sat on the raised platform, the alien pendant still warm in his hand. His mind raced, trying to process the events that had unfolded since he entered this strange ritual. The women circled around him, their eyes unwavering, observing every movement he made. He could feel the weight of their gaze like a physical force pressing down on him, judging him, waiting for him to react. But how could he react when he had no idea what was expected of him? The silence in the room was deafening. The air was thick with tension, and Jake could hear the sound of his own heartbeat pounding in his ears. His body felt stiff, every muscle tight with anxiety. He knew he had to do something, anything, but he had no idea where to begin. This wasn't a fight he could win with brute strength. No, this was different. This was a battle of understanding, of respect, and of survival. He glanced around the room again, noting the strange objects scattered across the floor and shelves. Some of the items looked ancient, while others seemed futuristic, with intricate alien markings and glowing symbols. Everything in this room seemed designed to test him, to challenge him. But what was the true meaning behind it all? What was the ritual meant to prove? One of the women, a tall figure with dark violet skin and sharp angular features, stepped forward and raised a hand. She was the one who had placed the pendant in Jake's hand earlier. Her eyes narrowed, and she spoke, in a voice that resonated with authority. "The first test was understanding," she said, her words echoing in the silence. "Now you must prove your adaptability. The ritual is not just about surviving the physical challenges. It is about your ability to think, to adapt, and to learn. You must show us that you are capable of understanding not just our customs, but our way of life." Jake's mind raced. Adaptability, understanding. He had to prove he could learn their ways, but how? The alien customs were so far beyond anything he had ever experienced, and he felt completely out of his depth. He had spent his life as a soldier, trained, to fight, to survive, to protect. But this was different. The rules of this battle were unknown, and every choice he made seemed to carry life or death consequences. The woman's gaze softened, but only slightly. "You will now face the second trial," she continued. "You will have to adapt to our ways. You will have to learn the meaning of trust, of connection, and of unity. These are concepts that are foreign to you, but they are essential to our survival. We are not conquerors. We are not invaders. We are a people who survive through unity, through respect. Show us that you can adapt, and you will be allowed to leave this place alive." Jake swallowed hard, feeling the weight of her words. Trust? Unity? Respect? These were concepts he understood in theory, but how did they apply in this alien world? He had to act fast. The clock was ticking, and the longer he stood there, the closer he came to failure. He had to show them something. He had to prove he could learn and adapt, or he would never leave this place. One of the women, the one with pale blue skin and sharp silver markings across her face, stepped forward. She extended her hand to Jake, and in that moment something clicked. This was a test of trust. She was offering him something, an opportunity, a chance to prove himself. If he hesitated now, if he refused, he would fail. Jake took a deep breath and extended his hand, grasping hers firmly. The moment their hands touched, a strange energy pulsed through him. It wasn't physical. It was something deeper, something he couldn't quite explain. It was as if the very air around him had changed, becoming thicker, more vibrant. He could feel the energy of the room shifting, the tension in the air lifting, as if he had just made the right decision. The woman smiled faintly, but her expression was still serious. "You have taken the first step," she said, her voice softer now. "But the next step is even harder." Before Jake could respond, the alien woman pulled away, and the rest of the women stepped forward, each carrying a different object. Some were weapons, others were tools, and still others were strange devices Jake didn't recognize. They circled him, their eyes watching his every move. The intensity of the moment was palpable. Jake knew that he couldn't afford to fail. If he did, the consequences would be dire. The tall alien with violet skin approached him again, this time holding a small glowing orb in her hand. She held it out to him, and Jake instinctively reached for it. As his fingers brushed the surface of the orb, a surge of energy coursed through him, filling him with a strange, overwhelming sensation. The light from the orb seemed to pulse in, time with his heartbeat, and for a moment, Jake felt connected to something greater than himself. "You must learn to control the energy," the violet-skinned woman said. "You must understand its flow, its rhythm. You cannot fight it. You must learn to guide it, to let it flow through you, to adapt to its power. Only then will you understand our way of life." Jake nodded, focusing on the orb in his hand. The energy was overwhelming, but he forced himself to concentrate. He couldn't let the fear take over. He had faced countless enemies before, but this was different. This wasn't a fight against an alien race, it was a fight against himself, against his own limitations. If he couldn't adapt, if he couldn't learn their ways, he would never leave this place. The energy from the orb pulsed stronger in his hand, and Jake could feel it beginning to shift. He felt the flow of power, the rhythm, and for the first time he realized what the women had meant. This was about understanding, about trusting the process, about being one with the energy. He focused all his attention on the orb, allowing the energy to guide him. It wasn't easy. The power was intense, and Jake had to fight to keep his mind clear, to stay focused. But slowly, ever so slowly, he felt the energy settle, its rhythm syncing with his own heartbeat. He had done it. The women around him nodded, in approval, their expressions softening. The tall alien woman spoke again, this time with a note of satisfaction in her voice. "You have passed the second trial," she said, "but the hardest challenge is still ahead of you. You must prove that you can survive not just in this ritual but in our world. You must show us that you understand what it means to be part of something greater than yourself." Jake's chest swelled with a mixture of relief and determination. He had passed the second trial, but he knew that the real test was still to come. The struggle for survival wasn't over yet. In fact, it was just beginning. Jake stood in the center of the alien chamber, his body weary but resolute. The last few trials had drained him, both physically and mentally. He had learned to adapt to the strange ways of the alien women, to respect their culture and their customs, but now he faced the final test, the ultimate challenge that would determine not just his survival, but his place in this alien world. The alien women, who had been watching him closely throughout the ritual, stood in a semicircle around him. Each one of them was silently observing, waiting for Jake to make his decision. The air was thick with anticipation, and the intensity of the moment seemed to suffocate him. Jake could feel the weight of their eyes on him, the pressure building with every passing second. The violet-skinned woman, who had been his main guide throughout the ritual, stepped forward. Her expression was unreadable, but her eyes held a deep, knowing gaze that seemed to pierce right through him. "You have passed every trial," she said, her voice calm but firm. "You have shown that you are capable of adapting to our ways, that you can learn to respect and understand our culture. But there is one final step, a decision that you alone must make. It is a choice that will determine your future and the future of your people." Jake's heart raced. A choice? What was she talking about? He had already gone through so much, survived the tests, learned their ways, and proved his worth. But now they were asking for something even greater, something that went beyond survival. The woman's eyes softened and she continued, "You must choose whether to remain here with us, to be a part of our world, to live among us, or whether you will return to your own people, leaving this place behind. But know this, if you choose to leave, you will never return. You will never have the chance to come back to us to be a part of what we have built. The decision is yours, human. What do you choose?" Jake's mind swirled with confusion. He had been through so much, and now they were asking him to choose between his own kind and the aliens who had captured him. Could he truly leave this place, this strange world where he had endured so much, to return to Earth? Could he go back to the life he knew before all of this happened? Or was there something in this alien world that had changed him, something that had given him a sense of belonging he had never felt before? The decision weighed heavily on his heart. He had fought to survive in this alien world, and in doing so he had learned so much about himself. The trials had tested him in ways he never expected, but they had also taught him the importance of connection, of understanding, of unity. The very things the alien women had shown him through their rituals, things that seemed so foreign at first, now felt essential to his survival. Jake thought back to the trials, to the moments where he had learned to adapt, to trust, to survive. He thought of the alien women, each one unique, yet all of them bound by a shared purpose, a shared culture. They had shown him what it meant to be part of something greater than himself, to be part of a community that valued unity over conflict, respect over power. In this world, he had found something he had never experienced before, belonging. But the choice was not an easy one. He had grown up on Earth, a human among humans, with his own people, his own world. Could he truly leave it all behind? Could he abandon everything he had ever known? The thought of returning to Earth felt like a distant memory, a life he no longer fully connected with. He looked at the alien women, his heart heavy with the weight of the decision. They were waiting for him to choose, and he knew this was his moment, his chance to make a sacrifice that would define the rest of his life. With a deep breath, Jake spoke, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "I choose to stay." The words felt like a release, a weight lifting from his shoulders. He had made the decision. He would stay with the alien women, to live in this world, to be a part of something greater than himself. He had found something, in this strange, unfamiliar place, a sense of purpose, a sense of belonging, that he could never have found back on Earth. The violet-skinned woman nodded, her expression softening. "You have made the right choice, human," she said. "You will be one of us now, a part of our world. You have proven your worth, not just as a survivor, but as someone who understands the true meaning of unity, of connection." Jake felt a wave of relief wash over him. It wasn't an easy choice, but it was the right one. He had chosen to stay, to embrace this new world and the people who had shown him a way of life that was so different from his own. It wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about belonging, about finding a place where he could truly make a difference, where he could contribute to something greater than himself. As the alien women gathered around him, he realized that this was the ultimate sacrifice, not in the sense of giving up something, but in the sense of choosing to let go of the past and embrace a future that was completely unknown. He had given up his old life, his old identity, to become something New, something stronger, something more connected to the universe. The ritual had come to an end, but Jake knew that his journey was far from over. He had made his choice, and now he would walk the path of unity, of survival alongside the alien women who had once been his captors. In the end, they were not enemies, but allies, and together, they would forge a new future, one that was built on respect, understanding, and the power of connection. As Jake stood there, surrounded by the alien women who had once judged him, he felt a deep sense of peace. The trials were over, but his journey had just begun.